Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, I guess, wherever you're coming from today. Welcome to another episode of Exploring 3D Experience Works. My name is John Martirano, and joined with me is Gian Calisi, and together we host Exploring 3D Experience Works. So, what is this session? Well, we've had 7 of them so far this year. So, if you joined, with us, we thank you for joining, and we hope you continue to join in the future. But for those who are brand new, you might be wondering, what is 3D Experience Works? Well, 3D Experience Works is a growing portfolio of tools that are handpicked by SOLIDWORKS to tackle just about any product development challenge that you face. So this that you see on screen is 3D Experience Work. So what does this product development process look like? So in its simplest form, it's plan, develop, and release. And you can see that if you're, SolidWorks users, and as many of you are, I'm very familiar with that second developing phase of the process. And if you joined us in 2020, then you know we cover actually all of these in great detail. And the rest you can see is actually, they sprinkle in quite nicely for this overall product development phase. And today we'll actually get a special look at all 3 of these and basically this big holistic approach to product development challenges that you may face. And to help us think product versus CAD file, we have a special guest today, Lisa Costa. I'd like to welcome Lisa.
Hello. Good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. No, this is not. No. I was a special guest last year during the webinars.
Yeah, we had tons of fun then. And one of the benefits about, not being in the webinar format anymore that I did forget to mention is that, we can actually communicate with the audience live. So there is a chat in the YouTube box. So if you have any questions or you just want to say hey or what's up, we'll be chatting with you throughout the session.
Sure. I've been kicking around a long time. I think we've established this. So, so I've been around product development. I mean, I'm a mechanical engineer that started out product development and aerospace industry, worked for Pratt& Whitney Aircraft, and I've worked machine design for Sylvania, making the machines that make the light bulbs. But I've been involved in CAD software, or some at the very beginning, and then also what we use the CAD files for, which is developing product in the case of Pratt & Whitney. But then here in the channel, I've been helping a lot of customers with a ton of different products. But one thing about working for SolidWorks, working for a reseller and partner products, is we interact with customers doing cool things with our software all the time. And they make cool products and they use our tools all the time to do that. So it's very exciting.
Great. Yeah, and sorry for those of you who couldn't just hear me now. Didn't realize I was double muted, and it was only a matter of time before one of us was. But I was just asking Lisa to tell us a little bit more about her background. Uh, but thank you for telling us that,
Oh,
Lisa.
yeah. I wasn't just offering it. Typically, I would. It's okay. Unprompted.
Dreaded double mute.
Oh yeah,
That's
I'm sure
right.
it's happened
Double
to
mute. Oh,
everyone at least once now. But
oh yeah. Exactly. It's the year of the
the
double mute, I think.
You're right. Yeah, the year the double mute.
Yep.
oh. Well, Lisa, so today we're going to be talking about how to think more product, thinking beyond just CAD files. So,
Exactly. Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
like,
So yeah. So that's what I prepared to talk about. So basically, thinking product versus CAD files is what we call this session, right? So it's not a versus, by the way. It's not like we're not managing the CAD file. So if we think about our SolidWorks users that are on, the yellow brick road to developing a product, when that, I call this assemblies, parts, and drawings. Oh my! I mean, so we know SolidWorks as a tool has always been great at developing products, but the end result is typically files, right? And we ended up with assemblies, parts, and drawings. Oh my! And these are a piece of the picture of getting down that road to developing a product, right? And so, absolutely, bar none, one of the best tools in the industry for developing product and creating these files, which contain that product, much of that product definition for assemblies, parts, and drawings, right? But we're going to think beyond that of, people that aren't SOLIDWORKS users, or how our SOLIDWORKS data kind of feeds a system of product development, to get product ultimately made and in the hands of consumers and things like that, right?
Right. So you're talking about bill of materials?
Some people think it's about bill of materials. If we think about a bill of material, we kind of we've established I've been around for a long time. So one of our running jokes is, when is a bomb and a drawing out of date?
Like a
Maybe
week
somebody
I don't know.
changes, makes a change.
As soon as you hit print, really. So that's it. Or save to PDF, which is the modern equivalent of printing, right? So,
Yeah.
By the way, we make, one of the claim to fame SOLIDWORKS, we make a great bomb on the field of the drawing, and I get it. But I've gone on customer visits, back when those things used to happen, where they said, oh, we run around the shop floor every morning, because they're using SOLIDWORKS. They're using a digital tool and storing the files digitally somewhere, but allow users to print, and they said every morning we go out to the shop and we destroy all the drawings that are out there, because we have no idea if it's out of date. So we want to make sure they print it again.
Wow.
Right. So this was years ago, but I mean, it's the same thing, right? And then, you might be saying, well, what about a watermark?
Yeah.
So that's why we get a lot of requests to put a watermark. And again, what does a watermark prove? How out of date it is? I mean, it's really, if you have a digital definition of your product, the BOM is just one piece. And again, when we talk about a product, it might be more than just what was modeled in SOLIDWORKS, right? If you're talking about something that's got mechanical, electrical, software, and if they're not using SOLIDWORKS, and this may not be the full picture of everything that we have, right?
I see. Okay, so we're thinking beyond just the CAD and mechanical, electrical software, which most products these days have some element of one or the other, right?
Yeah, there's a smart everything, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, there are smart windows now that the shades drop when it's sunny out. I mean, almost everything that used to be just mechanical is now got these other aspects. And I get there are still mechanical. And like I said, if you are a design house, the SOLIDWORKS files might be your deliverable, right? That's totally possible that we have design houses and stuff that they are a piece of the product development, and they're doing it at the behest or the requirements of somebody else. And sometimes the files are the deliverable. And by the way, we manage the files very well on the 3D Experience platform, but we're going to talk here about kind of the shortfalls, just real quick, of the BOM. Even if the BOM is what you think the end product is, we still have the aspect for a multidisciplinary company that everybody's got their different tools, right? They might be using SOLIDWORKS Electrical, they might be using Altium, software people might be using GitHub. SOLIDWORKS is probably the tool of most of the people tuning in today, and everybody develops their own parts and their own product structure within their tools. And then at some point they have to come together, right? And then we have some kind of meeting where we decide what the product looks like, because as I've said before, nobody goes to Best Buy and buys the mechanical, the electrical, and the software, and we expect them to put it together themselves. So we all come to an agreement of how these things come together, right? So this is the E-BOM is typically what people would call this, the engineering BOM. We decide that's the product that we want to make, right? So we get that BOM, and we're very proud of ourselves. And maybe it exists in a system. Sometimes it's an Excel spreadsheet, it could be. But then there comes the other role. So this would be part of that, plan, develop, and release that John was talking about, right? But then what is the point of releasing the BOM is to actually get it made. So then we have our friends in manufacturing, and they might be internal to our group, or we might have external manufacturers, but there comes a point where that BOM goes to somebody else. And it might be a different system or maybe a different Excel spreadsheet. And the reason why you saw it multiplies because we might manufacture our product in more than one place. So now you're talking about levels of, so you've got one engineering BOM, but then we make it differently. There's different processes, different machines that make it in one location than another. And then we have different purchasing challenges, right? And right now, I think everybody's got purchasing challenges actually. But so the way we source the parts, who we buy from, what we make versus what we buy might change when we manufactured in China versus when we manufactured in North Carolina, right? So a lot of people, the manufacturing BOM, it's called an M BOM, and then purchasing often adds. So again, these may not be on the field of a drawing like our assembly, like we saw with the drawing with a BOM, but they're typically in other systems. They might still be, Excel or something, but no matter what, even if they are a different software tool, they're disconnected. And they also, this is you introduce, everybody is managing their own version of that bill of material. And then what happens?
A change.
A change now. Right. Now this
Got to be a better way.
There has to be. Don't you say to yourself, God, there's got to be a better way. And by the way, I know from all of our talking to customers, that manually entering that BOM information into another system is real. People do it every day. And then it just now you have to manually go make sure everybody has the latest and greatest information. So what we're proposing with the 3D Experience platform is to have a place where it's a holistic approach for a digital continuity, right? So what if we had a world, where somebody had ruby slippers and we could, which fits in with the red of the SOLIDWORKS files actually, but if we could all be feeding our engineering definition, which includes the SOLIDWORKS files, right, as well as the structure, right, the product structure that we develop, with the parametric solid modeler, plus the electrical, plus the software. What if we could all feed it into a system where this stuff could come together, and now we have product information where people are kind of just adding their pieces of the puzzle to it, and then our compatriots in manufacturing and purchasing, procurement can add their information to the product data without having to make more files. There might be files associated with it, and they can associate those files also. So what's important to me in manufacturing and me in purchasing, the way I look at that product might be different than my friends in engineering. But this gives us one place where everybody can go to find out what that latest and greatest snapshot of what our product looks like, right? Either in its current condition that we sell it in, or what's upcoming. So we're when we release a product and then we're going to make the next generation of that product, we reuse things and we make changes, but we also are going to have to still manufacture and source. So there's this. It's not
So
like we
Lisa,
just have. If we had one BOM, that'd be easy to manage, right?
so if I got this right, basically, if I'm a manager, for example, I don't actually need to get into the CAD to get access to all the information I need. So it's specific to who needs it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So, and it's who, and then we'll see the way that we sell it through roles, right? So you're right. Anybody that needs access, now they don't need access to CAD files. They get access to the 3D Experience platform, and they're going to be able to view that data through the roles and the apps that make sense, right? And if everybody can be using the same data, and actually there's something in it for the SOLIDWORKS users they may not realize, which is that if the files are a part of the definition, we can have people adding things to it without modifying our files. There's nothing worse than a manufacturing guy opening up a SOLIDWORKS file or gal opening up a SOLIDWORKS file and doing what they need for manufacturing and actually changing the file, right? Designers don't want that. They want to do their design and then have people add to it without modifying the files. But if we could get to this holistic approach, which we do have with the 3D Experience platform, our users can get here. They will have more agility as a company. People can have confidence in the data because we don't have those disconnected systems. Right. Everybody knows they're looking at the latest and greatest, and also the quality will be improved, right? So this is what the 3D Experience platform brings to the table when we use that system for managing the product data, which is the SOLIDWORKS files and more.
I see. Okay. That makes sense. Just want to give a quick shout out to some of our folks watching in the chat. Hey, Karima. Hey, Logan. And CAD Cam 100. Yeah, we salute you too, as does Lisa. We appreciate that. But speaking for our audience, I'm curious as to what this actually looks like in practice, in what does it look like in the 3D Experience platform?
Sure. And for our
Yeah.
SolidWorks user, so what does this look like for this bubble on the left in the red, right? So what does the SolidWorks user's experience look like with the 3D experience platform? So what does it look like? What a good question. So I took a simple example, right? So it's going to look like any of our other tools for managing the SolidWorks data, right? So right inside of my tool, this is very simple. As we just got, I'm a simple woman. I like a simple example. It's an assembly called can. It's got a lid and it's got the body of the
90s
can.
film canister. That's what it looks
There you
like.
go. You don't really remember those, do you? No.
You know, never used one, but
The photomat kiosks in the mall parking lot where you drop off your film. Anyway, but this is what it looks like for the SolidWorks user. To them, they're managing their data. They're going to put that SolidWorks assembly into the platform by using the save commands. And again, we have a playlist for users that they'll be able to go to see more realistic what it looks like for different users and stuff in a playlist in the demo. But I just wanted to show it's no magic. It's not rocket science. You know, it looks to me like an assembly with two components, and that's what I deal with. I'm a SolidWorks user. This is what I made. I put it into the platform. I can see what revision it's at, what state it's at, and that I've got that's all up to date. So same thing as we get with our PDM Pro, actually going back all the way to those that remember PDM Works when I was around for that as well. Still that same feedback. So our users know exactly how their files compare to what's available to the rest of the company, right? Now, once it lands on the platform, now you can access it through a browser and you will be able to see that can. You'll be able to find that can and you'll be able to see that can. But behind the scenes, what has happened by putting those SolidWorks files onto the platform, what you got for free without, basically as part of the system, is that yes, there's a CAD assembly and the two CAD components as well as a drawing, okay? But it defined a physical product, something called a physical product, and the physical product for the assembly, and then a physical product for the lid and the body. Now, if we were in the business of making multiple cans with different sizes, we may have had configurations in that assembly. And what it would have done is it would have made, and you decide if it's a configuration that is really a different product, a different part, or if it was just something for visualization. But once you say, yes, this is a configuration that should actually be its own physical product, you could actually, that one CAD file, that one CAD assembly could have made, 20 different physical products, right, at the assembly level and 40 different physical products at the part level, right? Because this is going to give us that ability for configurations inside of SOLIDWORKS files to equate to actual products that we make and sell, right? Instead of it being stuffed inside the SOLIDWORKS file, inaccessible to other software products, right?
Right. That makes sense.
Does that make sense?
I think so. This image you're showing though is still a little scary. I still see some things that I'm not quite sure, like this 3D shape stuff.
Oh,
I think that I've used the tools that touch on that a little bit, and it's not really
yeah,
something that you have to be concerned with very much, but it has
yeah,
its
no,
uses, right?
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. That's how other roles that need the physical, like what the actual shape is, the geometry, like our simulation roles or the NC roles, right? So, and keep in mind, they need to know the geometry, but they don't need to get access to the SolidWorks files,
Right.
right? So this is how we. And again, I don't want to scare anybody with this display. This was just to kind of blow it out to show people what you're getting and how the system has these different item types made so that when those other roles interact, they will interact with the correct type of item without having to interact with the SolidWorks files, right? And that's all good, right? The SolidWorks files are safe, stored, managed, and they are linked to the right product that's going to be made. And if we just break it down real quick as far as descriptions, so when we put SolidWorks from SolidWorks desktop into the platform, we can have a CAD family object that's a single SolidWorks part or assembly, but it could create multiple physical parts if there are configurations, right? And then the physical products are actually items or parts, not to be confused with files or CAD files. So it's not the actual files, but it's what the file defines, right? The part. And if you think about it in terms of our desktop products, you would have to get to the level of manage to get, you'd have to have PDM Pro plus manage to get to a point of having something that's considered an item or a part with the files related to it, right? And get those different views of the BOM and things. But the 3D shapes, like we said, you very rarely interact with the 3D shapes. So the good news for our SOLIDWORKS users is they'll search for a physical product, they can find it, and when they drag and drop that physical product into a SOLIDWORKS session, it's going to go get the CAD files for them and all the relationships and the things that they need. So all the expectations of the CAD files and knowing what to get and what else is related is built into that connector that puts this stuff onto the platform.
I see. So Lisa, I think you explained it pretty well, but we did just get a question in the chat wondering what actually is the difference between the CAD family and the physical product. Could you articulate that a little bit more?
So yeah, and actually I think we have a good example toward the end. I think we're going to answer that at more toward the end, but it basically means that the SOLIDWORKS files are the SOLIDWORKS files, right? But when you put them onto the platform, there's a physical product. So when we go talk about manufacturing the physical product or the physical product being part of a bill of material or a product structure, it's not just the file, right? So let's a simple example, that top assembly, there's two things associated with it, right? So to get when I look up that CAN assembly, I want to find both the CAD the assembly and the drawing, right? There's two files that define that, not just one. So it's not a one-to-one. It can be one-to-many, or in the case of one CAD file defining like multiple sizes of cans, it can have one CAD family and three different physical parts. So
I see.
like I said, if you looked in the system and found the 1/2 inch can and put it into your, you're going to get the same CAD files if I look up the 2-inch can and drag it into. So it's a one-to-many relationship or many-to-one.
I see. So
both.
that's why it's.
I hope that's not. Hope that's not more confusing.
No, I think it makes sense. It's kind of
makes
appropriately
sense, yeah.
named as like the family. This is the family of design data attached to a product, but that might be multiple products. Okay, yeah.
Yes.
And those products could be based
right.
on different configurations in SOLIDWORKS. Okay.
Exactly. Yep. And keep in mind, when we get to the full product definition, there also might be that same part might have some electrical components too. That same assembly, like if it was an electrified can, which I don't think we have, but a smart can. You ate beans today. That you would have the electrical definition be there too. So and going way back to when I worked in machine design at Sylvania, we used to have philosophical conversations about what is the difference between the part and the drawing, or the part and the SOLIDWORKS. I mean the data file. And it was just hysterical. We used to when you got if it's got a D, it's the drawing. If you don't have that, and it was just like I said, it was ridiculous. And then I used to always go the numbering, and I would just go, this is not making any sense at all. Why do these guys think this way? Because we're all thinking files, right? We're thinking about files, not the actual part, and that's the important part. Nobody sent the drawing files down to the plant as the machine. Oh, this is what we made for the machine to make that light bulb. No, you're going to send an actual machine. So I mean, it's like it's just one piece of the definition of getting that thing out the door, right? So, and this is really, it's not like it, and I think it has huge benefits. So I'm going to expand on this a little more. So that's a super simple example. What the SOLIDWORKS user sees, it looks like assemblies and parts and drawing. Oh my. And then what the system does with it is kind of flesh it out more so that it can be used by downstream roles and people who aren't SOLIDWORKS users, but still add more information to that product definition, right? So think about manufacturing, purchasing, like we talked about before, but even simulation, visualization, right? They need to use that data, but you as a SOLIDWORKS user really don't want them mucking around in your files, which is what this gives you, the ability to kind of have people be able to add to it without messing up your stuff, right? So I always consider it saving me time, right? So if somebody can get to my SOLIDWORKS, if they can get to the product definition, my piece of it, without me having to generate screenshots or things like that, they can do their own thing with the data and not actually have to have a seat of SolidWorks or mess around in my files at all, right?
Right. Okay. Well, Lisa, I'm seeing another image on screen. I think we're going to need to explain a little bit, but but but
Oh
before
yeah,
that,
yeah. So
we did
that's
just get
why,
a question, just
yeah,
wondering how
yeah,
our audience could get notified when webinars or live streams like this are held, and they're actually held every Thursday this year from 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Usually they're about an hour or so, but that if you ever go to the SolidWorks YouTube channel, you'll see the next one is always right there, ready to go if you're interested in checking it out. But sorry for that interruption, Lisa. Let's.
Oh no, listen, advertising your next sessions, I'm all about it. You've got a happy audience, Happy John, happy Gian makes a happy Lisa. So we want butts and seats. So yeah, every Thursday. You guys don't have this on your calendar marked down for every Thursday at 11? Oh, I'm shocked. I do. Just plop it in there. You'll remember, and then you'll always remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. If there are any more questions, you
No,
want to
yeah,
go back to
let's
describe
talk
it?
about this
All right.
this structure here.
Oh yeah.
I see the another physical product that it looks like there's maybe some changes attached to it.
Exactly. So again, you don't have to. I mean, we have hassle-free data management. If the reason you just want to manage SolidWorks files, because you're making product and you just want revision control, lifecycle control, we can do all that with the hassle-free data management. It's still going to use the 3D Experience platform, but you just wouldn't. You don't have to use it all. It's almost like it's capabilities that are available. But if you get to the point where you want to add more to the SolidWorks, the product definition than just the SolidWorks files, and maybe some of that is things like a specification document. So this would be an example of a PDF that should go. People should know that PDF goes along with that sprinkler every time, because this is a specification that we used when defining that sprinkler, but it's not something that goes out in the box like a user document, right? So it's not part of the BOM, but it's part of what we use to define that product. So that's possible. You can start to add other things to the physical product that aren't SolidWorks files, and maybe aren't even part of that, what we would call a BOM either, but it is part of the product definition of when we want to go back in time and we need to make the next version of our orbital sprinkler, we'll always know what that specification was. And then on the left, and again, I use the relationship viewer. So this is an app on the platform to be able to look at look at any item type and then see the other items related to it. And so just to show an example of how the platform can go further, so we have the ability just with the basic roles when you buy any of our design roles, right? Like sculptor, creator. Here we're talking about the connector with this is data that came from SolidWorks and the collaborative designer for SolidWorks. When we get that design data onto the platform, there can be things that happen, like somebody does a markup, right? Maybe we found out that maybe it wasn't that kid friendly. Somebody stubbed their toe, or maybe it was too pointy and somebody stabbed somebody's foot. Which I guess that would be a bad example. Scratch that. Rewind. Anyway, they stubbed their toe, and so we want to make a kid friendly version. Like we're going to modify this sprinkler to be more kid friendly. It could start up with somebody marking it up of where the issue was, right? And then somebody makes something called an issue out of it. So we have an issue. Our sprinkler has been, flagged by the consumer products as being not kid friendly. So we make a markup, then we raise an issue, and then at some point, that issue, maybe it's an issue that we address with a change. So we're going to make a new revision based on making it kid friendly. We're going to use that markup and the description of the issue to come up with a newer version, maybe revision E of the orbital sprinkler that's going to be kid friendly, right? So those are all doable. Yep.
So Lisa, without going off topic here, we did get a comment about somebody being curious to see how eBOM management works in the platform environment. So,
Exactly.
Again, if you're going to get to it later in your presentation,
I am.
we can do
it's
that
the next
then.
slide.
Oh,
like
no way.
Okay. It's
Okay.
like these people have seen this presentation. I love you people. Anyway, so this is one, and again, this is the relationship viewer. You may never look at your product like this, right? It probably be that you use another role to look at that, right? So this is that same orbital sprinkler, but seen using a role called product release engineer. So this is a role that looks like, what does it look like on the left? The person that asked the question? It looks like
an eBOM.
Exactly. But you can see here, it's not, yeah, it's you can, very timely, isn't it? It's got a PDF here. It's also got everything that came from SolidWorks, but then it's also got physical products that were never modeled in SolidWorks. Maybe it's the packaging, like we were talking, the box, the other parts that need to define that sprinkler that we sell, right? All of that can be there. And here you can see, instead of seeing the relationships kind of in that, people sometimes want to traverse the relationships in that graphical viewer, but this is the way they would actually show up. So those relationships are important because this app knows to show the change. So nobody's going to look at this orbital sprinkler and not know that it's the result of a change. And that's the change. So these are those same things that we just saw in the relationship viewer, but just seeing them here in the context of a role that's utilizing that data. So again, this is, this is, you don't have to use this role, but this is a role that if you think about true BOM management, this allows you to look at that product structure flattened or with quantities. Like right now I'm looking at it, I've got revisions, but I'm not seeing quantities. So it's just saying these are the parts. But if I want to see quantities, I can see it with quantities. If I want to see it flattened out with instances, if you had 25 bolts, you can actually see it with 25 bolts, all instances laid out. So this is truly an e-BOM in that we depending on how I think about that product, right?
Right. Yeah.
And it's not just static on a drawing, right? It's actually can be viewed and then used by other roles. So this product structure would be used by downstream roles like our manufacturing item engineer, right? MFN.
Yes.
Manufacturing engineer.
Yeah.
So it can make that M-BOM without modifying this. It transforms it into a manufacturing BOM. I can reorder these things the way it's actually put together, not the way somebody designed it, right?
Right. That makes sense. Okay, so Lisa, I mean, this does look a little familiar. I'm just wondering, is this a new concept or?
Oh, so taking a system, having a system that manages the files and the product data.
Right.
Actually, I looked this up just for this question. Okay. So no, I did. I mean, like I said, we've established I've been around for a very long time. And but I did a search on the internet and I found a blog post from 2015. And the reason I like this blog post is because it's somebody I think he calls himself the Flying Dutchman. You can find this. It's a quote about the quote in his blog was, "The CAD structure does not represent the e-BOM," right? So if as the electrical person, I think that my PCB with the related components and things like that is the product, but the mechanical thinks that the SolidWorks assembly and the parts is the product, but ultimately it's not. This, if you think about our construct of how the 3D experience is keeping track of the product data, there is a physical product that we're going to sell, right? That's defined by both the mechanical, right? It's got the parts that are defined by mechanical, and some of them are also electrical. And then the electrical is related to some software that ultimately has some documents, right? So all of this comes together, but basically when I, as a consumer, buy that product, I expect to get all the things that make that product, not just the SolidWorks drawings, assemblies, and parts. Oh my, right? So it's not a new concept. And if you think about it, so logically, as we are as engineers, what's great for our SolidWorks users is when our tool of choice SolidWorks finds that part, it will find the SolidWorks assembly and it knows to go get all the component parts, the drawing and things like that. So this is not a new concept, but this is us going beyond just files, right? So our other tools have been very file focused, Workgroup PDM, Enterprise PDM, PDM Pro, PDM Standard, very file focused. But this is us being more product and acknowledging that SolidWorks files are part of your product definition as customers of SolidWorks, and you have more things you need to do with that data than just keep track of files, right?
Right. That makes sense.
And so from a big picture perspective, how do you as a SolidWorks user know that this is important, that this is that this 3D experience platform is bringing to you more product definition, and it is more about than just the CAD files. It is more about just the CAD files. So just taking some topics that I just randomly selected, just kidding. So people talk about traceability. And oftentimes they think traceability is who modified that file, though. So So knowing that Gian changed the CAD file, on July 22nd at 11:39, that's traceability. But in the world of product development, and like I said, when that unkid friendly orbital sprinkler was used, right? Do they care that Gian modified the file? No, they want to know why it was designed that way. They want real traceability,
Right.
which if you think about those other items like change actions, like issues, markups, and who
Who told me?
you,
Who told me
yes,
to do it?
why
Yeah.
did it change? Yes, why did it change the CAD file? So that's real traceability, and that's what you can have with the platform. You don't have to. Again, it can just be about the SolidWorks files and revs and whether it's in work or release, and all of that's part of it. But if you wanted to go beyond that, you can have real traceability. And not just for engineering, but for the manufacturing and purchasing, like we talked about at the beginning. And then, like I've already alluded to this, but what our customers usually sell to their customers is a product. They develop product with our tools. We make a great tool, SolidWorks, and all the SolidWorks and everything in the 3D Experience portfolio is great for developing product. And we know that you don't take your SolidWorks data and just give it to a customer. You ultimately have to give it to manufacturing or somebody to make it and things like that. So all the information. So we're just coming up with a system that can manage all the information that defines that product, not just the SolidWorks files, right?
So actually, Lisa, Steve Fick from Behind Scenes says hi, and he actually says, can the product structure in eBOM consist of multiple CAD systems?
Absolutely. Yeah. So again, it would be great if everybody only bought SolidWorks and it was all about SolidWorks files, but that can actually, I know we just talked like mechanical, electrical software, but if your company uses Inventor and they also use SolidWorks, sorry, was I not supposed to mention it? Anyway, well, CAD system A and us, right? You can actually bring those structures together so that you can actually traverse the product structure in total and actually have those viewable files of more than just SolidWorks data. So yeah, it could be more than one electrical system, more than one mechanical, more than one software, and they can still come together. It still understands the structure, and those tools will still, when they connect, will bring you back the right data to use with your tool, right?
Makes sense. And one more for you because we're having so much fun here. Can the eBOM widget in the platform be used to manage financial and procurement aspects of my product, like part cost, total cost, supplier, etc.?
It's not really. So there will be roles to do that, but today, we don't. So those would be like the Delmia Works roles. It would bring more of the ERP type functionality to it, the cost and things. You can still use properties for cost and everything, but what we don't have today is it doesn't do that roll up. So if you put a cost on all the parts, it's not going to automatically update the cost of the assembly, but you could output it to a CSV file and do that kind of stuff, or output it to your MRP tool and start to get those abilities to roll those up. So yes, we can keep track of that. And we can even there's some roles for linking to enterprise tools. If that cost actually exists in another system, there are ways to bring that in. So that does exist to be able to do that, but it might require more roles than just that connector for SolidWorks.
There are some ways to customize the properties that are shown too.
Yeah, configure. Yep, you configure them. It doesn't require code. You don't have to write for the connecting to other systems requires code. Don't get me wrong, but when we add like that product release engineer role, it just automatically works with our SolidWorks data. We don't need to. And if we're using SolidWorks custom properties, we would configure the system, and so they will show up in that eBOM and if they're coming from the SolidWorks files. That's all part of the system. It's all built in. Yep.
Excellent.
All right.
And so
I think I've interrupted you enough.
Okay, that's all right. You can interrupt me anytime, right? But then the other thing, as I said, so I used to joke with our salespeople when we drive up to a customer, and they've bought 10 seats of SolidWorks from us, but there's 100 cars in the parking lot. That to me says there's more than just SolidWorks users that get a product out the door. I mean, granted, some might be HR and stuff like that, but there are people that do product development that aren't necessarily SolidWorks users. So we offer roles, like we saw the product release engineer role is for people who aren't in SolidWorks every day, but do need to see the eBOM, right? And then even for the large company, not every person, we would love it if every person in design used SolidWorks, but as we talked about, if they're using other tools or they're at that more looking at product structure type person and don't get into the actual files, and all of them can be supported with this. And we always have this conversation. it would be a great world if there were only SOLIDWORKS files for our users to manage on a day-to-day basis, but there are usually more than just SOLIDWORKS files that they need to do their jobs and manage product data. And if you, in your head, think of, an Excel spreadsheet managing all your issues, or an Excel spreadsheet for the BOM, if you've got all this stuff going on, this is a system that you can be brought together and actually have real connections to the things that we make, so that you can see it in a big picture perspective, and be able to do aware use, be able to see that there's 5 issues raised against that orbital sprinkler, and maybe we need to address those. Things like that.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I am just wondering, do you have any examples that you could show us of like how this has worked for somebody out there in the field?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we have a ton of customers using it. We, at World, we had customers talking about using the 3D Experience platform. Certainly, using a cloud-based management, product data management, is what people are looking for. A lot of customers today, as opposed to keeping track of their own servers and being in charge of the backups and the updates. So I did bring an example of one of these customers, which you may have seen if you've ever looked at some of our demo materials. Biodapt is a customer. They develop prosthetics, very advanced prosthetics. So they had a challenge, which is a very common challenge we hear from our customers, being able to accelerate product development, right? Including industrial design, right? So they also use some of our roles for the advanced surfacing on the platform. But they wanted to eliminate repetitive tasks, inputting the same information multiple places, be more flexible, making changes, right? And streamlining communication of design concepts, which we know they use SOLIDWORKS for those design concepts, but there's other people, other processes, right? So they use the browser-based solution of the 3D Experience platform, but integrated to that SOLIDWORKS CAD software that everybody knows and loves, right? And they did have real results. Notice none of the results were made SOLIDWORKS files faster than ever, because pretty much SOLIDWORKS is fast. It's the fastest tool out there for making data, but it's about cutting down design time, product development time, and improving communications and being able to innovate faster because you have a tool. Again, if you're a SOLIDWORKS user and much of your day is spent doing like tasks that aren't inside, that are kind of, the bookkeeping of being an engineer, like the 3D Experience platform is purpose built as a place for people to manage product development processes, so that you can eliminate some of these repetitive tasks and having to do things over and over again, right?
Okay.
And we do have a quote from Mark McCauley, right? About, they used it, that it's an integrated design environment in the cloud, and they see it as represent the future of product development, right? Because of the flexibility and the freedom to work and be more efficient, right? So if we think back to parts, drawings, and assemblies, oh my. So Mark McCauley and our friends at Biodapt and a lot of other customers have reached, the Emerald City, and they have their SOLIDWORKS files as one piece of the definition of the city. It's not all of the citizens. It's just some part of what we do to have our, ideal environment, right? So hopefully everybody will go down the yellow brick road with us on the 3D Experience platform.
Yeah.
Follow the yellow brick
Yeah,
road.
and make it to the end, to the
Oh,
glory of
to the Emerald City.
getting that product out on the market in record time.
Exactly. Yep. And like I said, when you do more of these sessions, whenever people are seeing our roles in the 3D Experience Works portfolio, they're all using the underpinnings of this unified product definition, right? This digital definition to do their pieces of the puzzle, right?
Exactly. So even though we haven't maybe spoken or articulated quite explicitly the concept that we went over today of the digital product definition, it has been, just like you said, Lisa, it's been the underlying baseline functionality on top of which all the other products we've shown sit. They sit right on top of that backbone.
That's right. You got to have a foundation for the Emerald City.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Yes, you do. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Lisa. Maybe we can.
Oh, no. Thank you for having me.
Maybe we can get you back on again before the end of the year. We'll see.
Oh, yeah. It's always my pleasure.
Well, thanks again. And if you're interested in learning more about this digital product definition, Just showing you, you can look down to the links in the description on the YouTube listing itself, and the first link is actually going to be to a playlist that has a few videos that another colleague of ours, Brad Williamson, made a few videos and put them in a playlist to kind of show you getting more into the nitty gritty of how it would work and how it would look and feel to an everyday user that might be either a manager or a designer or engineer. And as always, special thanks to Sarah Zuckerman, always helping us out, and Steve Vick helping us on the back end today. It was a pleasure having you both working with us and making sure that this stream went smoothly. And if you liked what you saw today, come back, join us again on August 19th, again at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this is kind of like a perfect precursor into that next session, because today we talked all about that digital product definition, the real baseline concepts that the platform is really based on. And next time, we're going to have Andrew Gross, another special guest, come on and show us how revision management works in the 3D Experience platform. So how you can iterate and revise your designs, and how and when to use the different types of revisions that there might be in there, and really some best practices. So we're excited to have him join. And like we said earlier in the session, just want to throw out there, we do hold these live streams every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so that even though this is our next session for exploring 3D Experience Works, we have a SolidWorks live design next week, same time on Thursday, with Toby Schnars going over his pro tips for surface modeling. So if you like surface modeling, you're not going to want to miss that one. And I think everybody here knows Toby Schnars, Too Tall Toby. So definitely not going to want to miss that one. But thanks again, everyone, for joining, and we can't wait to see you next time.